we will have a dong song so that we can restart. Okay, now it's time to restart after a nice pause, after connecting or opening our hearts. Now we will have our panel and we will talk about how compassion and profit can happen at the same time. And today we have our panelists with us. Now I'll introduce them. We have AJ Vankatesh, and he's today with us. And we have Dr. Ashok Bhattacharya. Rambert. Hello, everyone.
Thanks,
We were having a nice conversation before the session. And so I would like to kick the discussion off with that interesting information that Ashok was sharing with us. And that he was telling us that the sharks, it was sharks, like not whales. Okay, sharks could hear the heartbeat of the fish, and that actually, like as we were opening our heart, they don't need to have a meditation. They don't need to meditate to open their heart, because they're already, and we are already born like that. But now we need an extra meditation. We need to pause ourselves so that we can go back to we can reset ourselves to go back to how we were born with. So Asha, can you tell us a bit about how we are functioning with compassion and how we can talk about profit in a different way, how we can look at it from a different perspective so that it is not the profit that everyone thinks about?
Well, first of all, let me talk about compassion. And I have a clinic called the Empathy Clinic. So I think empathy can lead to kindness, that can lead to compassion. And compassion is what you do about your kindness. And if you think about the word compassion, the word passion is inside that. And passion is something that we all have no trouble defining, in the same way that we have no trouble defining love. We know when we feel passion. And that COM in the beginning of it implies a connection, like a comrade, or to compare, compassion. So I think that when we think about people coming together with a unified passion to do something, whether it's in the workplace or in a relationship or with our children or our parents or our loved ones, the result of that experience together is going to be more profitable emotionally and spiritually and socially for all of us. And I think that when we think about the workplace, I've worked in hospitals and clinics for years. For me, it's very important to have a workplace that feels safe, that feels secure, so that when people are working with me and I'm working with them, that safety and that security can easily allow compassion to happen. And I think it's very, very clear that when people are getting along and they're enjoying the workplace, everybody profits. I'll leave it there.
Okay, I really love this. So I would like to go to you, Karan, because we were talking about compassion, what it was about yesterday as well. But can you just tell us a bit about those concepts? Because when we talk about compassion, where does it come from? What is compassion? And what is empathy? What is sympathy? Can you just tell us the difference between those?
Sure. Yeah, I think as Ashok pointed out that, compassion has passion in it. Yeah. Now, when we talk about passion, it's about me. I'm passionate about something. I will not look at my physical discomfort or anything. I'll just give myself fully. I will not look at my watch and see that, no, I just 2 hours, now I'm tired, I just have to finish it. I'll be passionately involved in that. And, I will forget about everything else. I'll forget about my own self also. But when this passion is about others, it's about the bigger thing. And when you combine this passion with purpose, this becomes compassion. Because it's no longer about me. It's about everyone. Now everyone, I cannot think about everyone when I see that they are different from me. When they're part of me, they're just an extension of me. For example, a little child, you take their toys away, and you break the toy, they will cry as if you've broken their arm. Probably, it's that the pain is real, right? Similarly, if I feel that you're part of me, you're my friend, very close friend, somebody says something to you, somebody does something bad to you, I will feel the same pain as you're feeling. But what if you're a stranger? I don't even know you. But out of humanity, can I still have the same feeling? And when I have the same feeling, the compassion is to take action, to take you out of that and not even looking anything in return. If I look for the reward, then that's not compassion. Then I have not included you as part of me. So I think that's where compassion is all about. It's about the larger, audience. It's about all, not just about me. Like today we are facing all these challenges. So we call it environmental related challenges or anything you call it. Just because I am taking the everything that I need from this planet without even caring about the future generation. Yeah, that's maybe I can be passionate about something, but that's definitely not compassion. So I think this is what my viewpoint is.
Awesome. So I would like to ask you, AJ, what has been so for the last year and a half, we've been going through a challenging time, and like everyone was suffering. So it was like a unique thing because like usually when something happens, it's a local thing. It's either a country or like even a city getting impacted by that. But not for the first time in history, but as we were living on this earth, because like it was like the beginning of the century.
Absolutely.
And none of us was here. So we witnessed for the first time in our lives something that has impacted everyone around the globe, and we were at the same place. We were going through the same challenges, feeling the same worries and about health, about our loved ones. So what was your experience in the corporate world, like about this, and how companies were reacting to it, and what was compassion standing in all of that?
Yeah, so I'll break this into two parts. One is, let's look at, what happened. And I think it's very important for us, all of us to, look into the past because that helps us to learn and lean back into the future as well, right? Isn't it? So, before the pandemic, what was happening? A complete rat race, all of us running around, many of us trying shortcuts to success and running headlessly for something, which many of us are still running for something. And if I were to ask you what happened during this pandemic time, I'll give you a classic example. I was just thinking about this some time back. So tell me how you feel when I say the following sentences. They are not like me. Their way of thinking is different. I'm different from them. It doesn't affect me. It's their fears, their problems, their feelings. Reflect on this. The answer of compassion is hidden in these sentences. And just what, in fact, Karan just mentioned, it's the me versus them issue, which I have seen in the corporate world in the pandemic. It's the me versus them. It's like, I am not affected, so it doesn't matter to me. However, as the pandemic shaped up, we saw that we are all in it together. We are all facing the same anxiety. We are all facing the same fear. We are all facing the same kind of challenges. So we are all in it together. So the me versus them game is now changing, and people are starting to realize in a different way. Now let's come back to the element of the profit aspect of it. So did we envisage a direct link to profit and compassion together? Earlier, to some extent, some companies did, but probably not to a large extent. It was more like an eyewash, earlier to show some good that's happening. And let's look at the present now. The classic example of the lack of compassion, what organization did not do. For example, the toxic culture that prevailed or prevails within many organizations during the pandemic because of the lack of, I'm just focusing on one element here right now, passion. Not listening to employees, not listening, not hearing them in terms of what their needs are, what they wanted. I have this popular term that I use as the 3 R's. Not allowing your employees to reset, recharge, and reflect. Not allowing them to do these things have created what today, for example, coming to the present now, what we call as the great resignation wave. What are we seeing in the corporate world? A lot of resignations happening, and I'm sure a lot of you who are in the corporate world have heard this term, the great resignation wave. People trying to move around. And why is it happening? Think about it. It's not, people who've stayed in the organizations are also moving around. It's just because of the lack of the empathy from the organization's point of view towards the employees. Because, to our earlier point when we were discussing, Karan, the aspect of, focusing on numbers all the time, thinking about numbers all the time and not about people who bring the numbers is the biggest flaw that organization has come to.
Absolutely.
And many have realized trying to course correct, before it's too late.
Yeah.
Let me also give you a quick link to Profit, and I'll end at that. I don't want to prolong it too longer. And this is research-based, very interesting stuff as well. Did you know that compassion carries physical health benefits, and this is research-based stuff. And I'm sure Ashok will be able to reiterate this aspect. So practicing compassion has shown in an increase in an hormone. I can't spell it. It's called as DHEA by 100%. It's actually an anti-aging hormone. For those who are listening, please understand. If you practice compassion, it increases your anti-aging hormone.
Please take a note of this. This is the most crucial.
No, next time for the compassion panel, you should ask their age and see if they look younger. If they look younger, they're compassionate, and you can call them to the panel.
Yeah. So why am I saying that? Because one, a lot of stress and depression and anxiety has actually made young people look older today. And I'm telling the truth today, what's happening around. And practicing compassion also, reduces your cortisol, which is basically the stress-creating hormone, by close to about 23%. This is research-based data, right? And why am I saying this? Now, coming to the link to the Profit, is basically, to end my statement here, the more you practice compassion, the happier workforces you create. And to Ashok's point that he left with, in terms of, when you have more happier and more enjoyable workplaces, automatically that leads to profit, right? So organizations which have started to realize it are moving in that direction, have started to imbibe or build more compassionate leaders and programs within the organization to build skills where people start. It's unfortunate, but you need to build skills in compassion now. That's how it's becoming an organization, and that's definitely yielding to benefits in the organization, which was not probably happening earlier. So there is a shift. Yes.
And I think we should use it as one of the selling points for these programs. It keeps you young. I think it would get much attention. So I think, Ashok, you want to add something to that.
Yeah, if I may, I want to point out a few things. That human beings are born helpless. We can't fend for ourselves for many, many, many years. And most animals, they can walk very soon after their birth. And human beings look after each other when we're sick. It's a fundamental thing that we do. And we can heal and get well. And the other thing I want to mention is that a common enemy can get people to get together. And this is the first time in my lifetime, I was born shortly after the Second World War, this is when there's been a common enemy called a virus, COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And that has enabled scientists all over the world to work together in an unprecedented way with a common goal to fight this enemy. And we all profit from that. We all profit from countries all over the world working together. And against this problem, this unified problem that we have. And it's that compassionate effort that has enabled our culture, our species, to be able to push back and fight back, I think, hopefully effectively against this, much faster than the other pandemics that have swept through our cultures in history. And I think that the idea of looking after each other in the workplace, or when we fall sick with something, or even if we just need a soft shoulder to cry on, I think it's what brings us together. It is our humanity. Compassion is our humanity.
True. It's actually it's so simple, and even those simple things makes a huge difference. And I think that's what we have realized during pandemic. But I would like to ask Karan, so you are also working with organizations, you're developing programs, and you're working with leaders. So if I ask you about leaders, like if we have leaders in the audience, what should they be doing in order to have compassion prevalent in their culture?
See, then if they are sensible enough, they're wise enough, then they don't need me to tell them then what they need to do. The important thing is that this is something they need to understand. As Ajay was saying, that maybe today or tomorrow people will understand. Somebody need to take initiative. Some organization need to take the lead in this area and say that see, we are the proven case study in this. Maybe we are a billion-dollar organization or multi-billion-dollar organization, and compassion is the model we followed in this. Just like you had Tony Shea talking about Zappos, as happiness as a business model. Now this is what, if you bring in, everybody will follow, because everybody wants, at the end of the day, profit is not a bad thing. It's something. If you want to make bigger impact, you need your organization to be profitable. Yeah. Otherwise, how can you make an impact? Otherwise, you just want to talk about impact, right? This is why it's very important, whether it's an NGO or it's a for-profit organization. Everybody needs funds and everybody needs that. So when companies, if as a business leader, if you think that you can still use the same method that you were using earlier, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, because one thing that this pandemic has done to all of us is it gave us a time to sit back and reflect and ask this big question, which we were just like running away, and we were just running away from this question as well. Why am I doing what I'm doing in my life? Yeah. So once this question has come to our head, now people just can't do that same stuff again and again, because they want something which is purposeful. Why am I doing? Am I making an impact? Like the previous thing we were talking about, mad thing. Making a difference. Yeah, we always say that our courses should be named as certified madness coaches, because this is what we are working on, making a difference everywhere we want to go. This is not just because like suddenly there's a, as I said yesterday also, change of heart, but at least you should understand that this scenario has forced us to re-look at our priorities in life. So I think this is why it's very important.
And I think, I mean, you made a great point, because usually when we talk about profit, people connotate it with like negative things. It feels like greedy. And when we talk about compassion, heart is only about like, feelings, but no outcomes. So, and it is the reason why we are actually doing this event, so that to showcase that they can go hand in hand. It's not this or that, but it is like together, and not the or, but the and. So it's, I mean, you really put it in a beautiful way. And Ashok, I think you wanted to add something. You were raising your hand.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to Karen's beautiful words. Compassion breeds hope. When people have hope, they work so much harder than if they don't have hope. And we've proven this so many times over and over again. So a company will profit if the people that work there, everyone, including the leaders, are hopeful. Hopeful is a powerful motivator.
Yeah. And so, Ada, if we look into the companies, and if we think about what's in it for them and for their future, how do we make sure, as a company, that we are compatible with today's conditions, and that we can have a sustainable culture, a sustainable organization, and put compassion in action to support that?
Okay. So I'm going to pick on some of the stuff that I heard Ashok and Karan specifically say. I'll start with two words here. I think purpose and hope. I think that beautifully sums up a lot of stuff that you said, and I'll explain how that comes into action in with live examples. But before that, one very important element: we are all born. We have this frontal cortex, unlike animals, and that basically breeds logic, right? So we want to find logic in everything. So our logical mind, like Mine, you asked us that you felt, you assumed that if we have compassion, maybe we may not get numbers, or if we have numbers, we really don't need compassion. maybe, vice versa. A logical mind sometimes tells us that it could be one over the other, compassion or profit, profit or compassion. However, we never think the art of possible, of can they go hand in hand, and possibly they can, and that's what Karan is saying, that now organizations have started to realize that yes, it is possible. So let's look at what are some of the challenges that the new normal has actually put us. To get to that linkage of the compassion and profit, we also need to understand the challenges organizations are facing. The hybrid workforce, the work from anywhere kind of culture. What's it breeding? It's breeding social isolation, right? Very clearly, I'm right now actually socially isolated. However connected I am, but I'm still socially isolated. It's breeding anxiety. The whole element of the Omicron coming in, the fear, the depression, and a lot of mental health conditions and issues that are happening, right? Humans are social creatures, and we know that. Humans are social creatures. They need to connect. And enterprises need to be both financially healthy and mentally healthy and agile to thrive. This is very important. Enterprises need to be financially healthy and mentally healthy and agile to thrive, which means compassion and action as a business. So, classic example, in action, I know of some Tom shoes. I know about Warburg Parkson, who basically manufacture eyewear, and they're called empathy eyewear. Very interesting aspect. And the line of business is, if you buy an eyewear from them, they donate a particular percentage, or they donate an eyewear to someone who is needy and who does not have an eyewear. Now, please understand, that's the larger element that I'm trying to convey here. And I thought, and I'll also share this with you. So I have this brand of tea called Vadim. And if you see here, and they have this sustainability promise here, and they have something that they say that, teach me 1% for education. So every 1% of revenue is directed towards the education of our tea growers' children. That's compassion. And now coming to the points that, Ashok said and, Karan said of hope and purpose. Hope for those tea growers' children that they can have a better life tomorrow, and purpose that I am building my organization towards a larger purpose, not only just to provide you tea and comfort, but at the same time, probably serve greater good. And that's the beauty of compassion in action, compassion in business. And that's how organizations should start thinking and driving people's mindset and leaders' mindset. So that's my little 2 cents here.
I love that. So I think, Karen, you wanted to add something. Can we also talk about, there was a question, by the way, to our audience, as a reminder, you can use the Q&A section to post your questions to our panelists. So if you want to ask any questions, you can use the Q&A just to the right of the screen, and you can post your questions. There was one question: are we viewing profit as only a financial impact? So as you're adding on to the discussions, Karen, can you also answer that question?
Can you write the question here? I just want to bring in one very interesting example, since Ajay was talking about a couple of, this organization and other organization. One interesting thing that I really found, in this last 1.5 years is, company like Zomato, they started this feature, you can tip your employees, which is like, okay, you can tip the guy who's delivering you the food. But the interesting thing is, they are sharing their stories with you. You can just read about them. You can read their stories. Now, this is very interesting. You know why? Because I feel my people should, get paid more. And of course, as a business model, if I can't pay, how can I generate revenue for them, not just for me? They used it. And then later it was followed by Swiggy. But the thing is, the intention behind this, first of all, I need to see these people as my own people first. They're not just resources for me. If they're just resources for me, I'm paying them something, I'm getting my work done. That is the mindset. But if I see they are my people, their pain is my pain, their family is my family, I need to do something for them, I do it, or I make it happen for them. That's really what also that compassion and profit, comes together. And I think this is what the agenda is. When we talk about head and heart, the idea of head and heart, we are not talking head or heart, because everywhere you go, people say, no, you should be more heart-oriented. I say, if you're heart-oriented, maybe you'll have a great life, you'll be very joyful, you'll have everything good, but you will not be successful in the world, because to be successful in this today's market, you need head also. You need that research, you need that number, you need everything. So head or heart is not the solution, head and heart is the solution. Absolutely. And that's where profit and compassion comes together. when I am at the same time as an organization, they say in Bhagavad Gita, they say that there's everything has a dharma. So the dharma of a business is to make profit, but the dharma of the person who is running that business is to be compassionate. So the person who's running the business needs to be compassionate, but the business as an entity is only about profit, which is very difficult for people to understand. Oh, if it's only for profit, then it's very greedy. No, business can't be greedy. The person who's running that business can be. So the person who's running it needs to be compassionate, so that's why this whole thing can change only if we have compassionate leadership.
True.
I think Ajay, you wanted to say something here.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have time, maybe a minute. I could probably add something. If
Sure,
you don't,
please.
it's okay.
No, please go on. We have now is the time for the Q&A, so you can just and we
All right,
let me
great.
check the
So,
questions.
so I just want to add to what Karan said, and what some organizations which have already started moving in that direction. However, many have yet not realized
Absolutely.
the challenges that they're going to face because of this issue of not, imbibing or building compassionate and resilient leaders in the organizations. First focus area, as you rightly said, Karan, is the leaders, because they are the decision makers, they are the torch bearers, right? So building that culture of compassion rests with the leaders, and their mindset changes the organization's mindset. So yes, start with the leaders. The second element is for organizations, I'm just sharing this, is the systems and processes as well. It's not just, talking about good things is going to help you build it. Organizations don't run with just, like politics, you say something and something happens. It doesn't run like
Feel
that.
good
There are
factor.
systems and processes. There are models. Organizations work in a structured manner. So you need to ensure, as employees, as organizations, torch bearers, you need to ensure that within organizations, have you created those channels where compassion can flow smoothly within the organization and can be practiced, because this needs to be practiced. So that's the second thing that you'll have to focus on. And the third and the most important thing that organizations need to focus on is the employees themselves, in terms of ourselves. If I were to call myself an employee, ourselves. So practice more and more compassion in your everyday life, in your professional and personal life. Small acts of gratitude like thank you can start multiple things. It can start a chain. So starting with the self, I think, becomes very important. So let's be compassionate towards ourselves, our body, our mind, our heart, and our soul, which will eventually start realizing that the compassionate is flowing within you and outwardly into the environment. So
Absolutely.
these are three things that I think organizations should
I
start practicing.
completely agree with you, Ajay, that it has to be part of the culture as such. It has to be part of your value system, your behavior, the way people are rewarded, even let go. You let go of your people based on this. That's how it can run. So thank you so much. I think a question
and
which you were
and and
asking.
and sorry, and for all of you, to be very specific. So all of you, I'm hearing from yesterday today, I think organizations, we also need more life coaches who could help build and sustain these kind of skills for people. So I think it's very important. It's a great initiative. It's a great work that all of you are also doing, and we need more advocates in this space.
By the way, we have one more panelist. He was quite late, but we will let him in with grace and gratitude. And we have Dr. Elia with us today. He's the president of the Happiness Center and #1 Amazon's best-selling book, 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness. Hello, Dr. Elia.
Good morning. What I have on my calendar, I'm not supposed to be on for another 20 minutes, so I thought I was early actually, but
Okay.
maybe the time.
We are agile. We are agile, so no worries. It's always good to have your presence. Thank you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
So we were talking about compassion and how it should be going hand in hand with profit in the organization, and how leaders should be supporting it so that they have compassion prevalent in their company cultures. So we also are getting questions, but let me ask you about your perspective on that, how compassion is working in the companies so that they are performing better and also getting more outcomes.
Thank you for that question. I think the biggest challenge facing organizations in this pandemic era in the last 2 years And that comes from 17,000 HR directors across the globe, across the industries, profit, nonprofit, and so on, is to ensure the mental and physical well-being of their employees. I think companies have done a fairly decent job of ensuring the physical well-being of their employees, but companies are really struggling with the mental health aspect. And I think leaders in organizations, as leaders, we need to step up to a whole different level. And as I work with, senior C-suite and senior HR leaders, even in the middle of the pandemic when the workforce was hybrid or just remote, what I shared with them was this: it's not enough to ask, even over Zoom, to your employees, how are you doing today? That's not enough, because most people are not going to tell you the truth. You need to lean into the camera, like I do right now, like a lot closer, and say, how are you really doing? How's your family? How are your kids? And if you want some extra credit, if you want to raise your own level as leadership, you need to be vulnerable and open, saying, by the way, we're struggling too. My kids haven't been to school for 9 months. It's driving my wife and I crazy. It's been really depressing, the fact that I haven't been able to be in the same room with you guys and walk around the office and touch, and connect with you. In other words, unless we as leaders open up our hearts and our minds and express that kind of vulnerability and honesty, it's what I call hot communication, HOT, honest, open, and transparent. Unless we do that, we're going to lose our workforce, because they're not going to be open and vulnerable to us unless we show that first. And I know some leaders are like, they're not comfortable with that, but I push them. I'm like, you want to connect with your people who are struggling with depression, anxiety, and stress? I mean, the numbers are, according to the United Nations, we're like, you have 2 billion people that are struggling with that did not have a pre-existing condition, mind you. Okay. And I think those numbers are way underreported. I mean, those numbers are from November of 2020. So I don't know if anybody has not been impacted, to be honest with you. So we can't continue to do business as usual as we look forward to the next normal, not even the new normal. Because my partners and I, we're always looking at 6 to 18 months ahead with companies. What does the next normal look like? And how do we need to show up in terms of kindness and compassion? I dare even say love. I know you don't use love usually in the corporate world, but that's what humanity needs right now. Because for the last 2 years, it's almost like some giant finger from the sky came down and pressed the pause button on humanity, which has forced us in some ways outside of our comfort zone to reflect and to deeply think about, how do I want to live my life? That's why you're seeing so many people, at least in the United States, who are not going back to their jobs at numbers we have never seen before. Since the Industrial Revolution, we have never seen millions of people exit the workforce, or at least exit their companies, and they're sitting on the sidelines thinking of, what do I want to do next? Money and getting paid is not enough. It's connectivity. It's basically, going from your mind to your heart. They say that's the greatest distance in the universe, right? In some ways. So I'm asking leaders to be heart-centered a lot more.
Oh, awesome. And this is like fitting perfectly into our concept of pause to restart. So the world actually paused to restart. We reset ourselves to our basics. And so I love it. By the way, there was one question from Javier. And what about compassion with our suppliers and clients? How do you face it? So yeah, we have been talking about our employees and leaders, but we also have people that we are interacting with externally. So what about doing it, showing compassion to our suppliers, to our clients?
Can I take this?
Sure.
Yeah. No, I think this is what Ajay was already talking about it. If it's a part of the culture, then whether it's supplier or client, it's for everyone. Because if my organization, compassionate organization, then it's not just for my people, it's even for the clients and even for my vendors, everybody. I tell you, as a coach, when you start, working with organizations, as an outside coach, I'm sure everybody must have experienced this. If that culture of that organization is anxiety and creating that sense of urgency all the time, they try to bring that into you. You can also feel that sense of urgency and anxiety And sooner you realize that, oh, I'm here to make a change in the culture and I am also becoming like them. That's the time when you start actually becoming wiser and more experienced, that you know how to take a step back and see that, oh, this is what is happening. Because the culture is not just to the suppliers and the clients only, but even the families of suppliers and clients and even the employees. Everybody's getting impacted. And as an organization, the bigger your organization is, the bigger your impact is. Yeah? It's not just with the number of employees and the number of customers you're dealing with. It's much larger than that.
And so I would also like to ask Ashok, since you are also working with clients and you are working with companies, so if in our audience, a company, they are a new beginner and they would like to put more compassion into their processes, as AJ was saying, into their culture, what would be some tricks? And please, Dr. Elio, I would also like to ask the same question to you too. What would be some quick wins, quick steps that they can take in their organizations to be a little bit more compassionate?
Yeah, and I would say they're not really tricks, honestly, because I feel like we're not tricking everybody. It's that we need to have a buy-in from senior leadership. Like, it starts from the top. The companies that are thriving, I mean, you see, I'm good friends with Claude Silver, Gary Vee's organization. He's the chief heart officer. A chief heart officer looks after the well-being of every single member of the organizations, and it starts at the top. If you have that kind of buy-in, then it becomes almost, it would be uncool not to be compassionate. It's the other way around. You know what I mean? It's almost like this, this positive peer pressure, I guess I would say, that everybody tries to outdo each other with compassion and kindness. That's the kind of culture that we want to create. And it has to be authentic. You can't fake it. People see through that right now. If it's authentic and it works, it's great. If it's a trick, quote unquote, or temporary, you do it once and then you never do it again, then that doesn't work.
So just to add what Ellie is saying, empathy and compassion are not the same thing. Empathy is the capacity to experience somebody else's experience from their point of view, not yours. So if you ask somebody how they're doing and you can't relate to it, that doesn't mean that they're not experiencing the same thing. There's no way that these two organisms are going to be able to relate to each other because they're totally different creatures. But empathy is really trying to relate to the experience of another person. So my tip, if you will, is that what people need, especially in an organization, and I do this all the time in my therapy sessions with my clients, I ask how we are doing. What is this experience feeling like to you? Now, I might get an answer I don't like. Somebody might tell me, well, I'm not really getting much help from this. And that's much more helpful for me to dive in and find out what I can do from their perspective to make their engagement in this experience more powerful. And so if we could ask that question that allows a safe place for people to describe how their engagement can be more, not only are they going to feel safe in that environment, they're going to have more hope, more compassion, and they're going to be happier, because a happy worker is a better worker.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, they're also showing that it's not like only goodwill and just like we're wishing for it, but it's really shows, the results are showing. So we are coming towards the end of our session. Do we have any questions, by the way, from the audience? Let me check. You can put your questions in the Q&A section or the comments if you like. Okay.
And I love what you said about happy employees. We all know that happy employees are, first of all, better team players, right? They're better co-workers. They're more creative. They're more innovative. And as a result, they're more productive and more engaged. And as a result of all that, the company or the organization is more profitable. So there's a direct link between all those things. So thank you for bringing that up.
And I would like to add one more thing to that, psychological safety. Because like, as you were saying, Dr. Elia, being authentic and letting people be authentic and giving that space, I think has gained a lot of importance during this time. And it used to be important, but we were not seeing it happening. There was that gap. So what would you say about opening that space of psychological safety, AJ?
I think this is an excellent point that you brought up in terms of the psychological safety element of it, because like I said, what is happening in people's mind today. I think that's an important area that we need to focus in organizations. What's going through people's mind, and with the kind of changes from the pandemic, it's not gone, right? I mean, you can see that different. It's affecting us in different ways, right? So considering all of it, I think various kind of safety measures organizations need to look at, not just the psychological safety element of it. Even physical safety for people is also going to be very important. So the safety element, if I were to just bucket it as safety, becomes a very, very prime element within organizations to focus on, to help people feel secure. They know, okay, I have a safe place to work, and I know that I'm working with an audience where I'm feeling safe. I'm feeling, I would want to point out to another research where you also picked up this element of feeling seen, feeling safe, feeling courageous, and feeling connected. So there is a research which also picks on this element, which says that organizations need to drive their culture, which is a safe, seen, courageous, and connected kind of culture. So that's how I would sum it up in terms of not just the psychological safety, but in a much more larger way.
Awesome. And there's one
It's a
question.
fantastic question. I was just going to say, I wasn't reading the
Exactly.
question. Please go ahead, because we need to answer this question. If that's the last thing
Yeah.
we do, that's a great question.
And Shrika, if you can put it on the screen too, most of the discussion is from a leadership company's view. What would you suggest to an employee who's treated not so well without compassion? What he or she does she have an option other than resigning?
Yes. There's always options in life. Don't ever forget that there's always options in life. I think the hot communication that I talked about before, honest, open, and transparent, isn't just for leadership. That's true for all of us, including on this panel, in our own personal lives, and with our friends, with our family and extended family, and certainly at the workspace. If you're an employee and you're not treated well, it does take courage. There's no question about it, because you feel like I can't afford to lose this job, or but it does take enough courage to go and speak to somebody that can make a difference, whether that's an HR person or a senior leader, and say, I'm my manager. We all know that most people leave their jobs because of their managers, not because of the company. It's because how they get treated. So we want to have that courageous conversation and say, I haven't been treated well, and I'm getting close to the point. Most people have exit interviews, right, in companies. People exit and they have an interview. When I work with companies, we have stay interviews way before you get to that point, when you check in with people and say, how are you really doing? Exit interviews are too late. You've already lost a great employee, a very talented employee. You need to have stay interviews along the way after, and then you never get to that point, because during the stay interviews, you find out how someone is feeling about their position and how they're being treated. And you have that kind of transparency throughout the year. So it's not like at the very end, when they're already left and they found another job or they're resigning, otherwise you're losing really good talent in your company. So I would say have those stay interviews, have those communications early on. And even though it's scary to talk to somebody higher up than you, it's okay to honor yourself. It's part of your self-care. And I'm a happiness expert, so part of our self-care is to speak up for ourselves, even when it's not easy.
Yeah, stay interviews. I love that. Every company should embrace that idea. Stay interviews.
Okay.
AJ,
I
you
have
want
a
to add
different
something?
answer. Yeah, I have a different answer for this whoever's posted this question. So one angle is what Doctor pointed out. The other angle is organization. I also spoke about systems and processes. Please note, as I said, what organizations need to focus on, and a part of the system and process is also to set up councils or helpline numbers where employees can actually flag off the kind of concerns that they face where if they feel that they're not treated well. And that's the difference that organizations will actually show from the top, that yes, we hear you and we will take the corrective action. In case they don't see such kind of, and that's how cultures are driven, right? In today's scenario, you need to drive cultures in a way where you need to listen to employees and you need to work towards what employees want. So as a system and process for the organization, this is my other answer. And organizations are doing it, please note. I won't name the organization, but organizations have already set up internal measures where you can actually reach out to such helpline numbers and you can actually point out that this is how I am feeling. I have been asked to take on calls at times where which is not suitable to me. I've been asked to come on video and I'm not comfortable. You can clearly voice out if you're not feeling comfortable on any area, and that's where slowly things starts changing, and people start understanding. It takes time. It's not
Are
that
they
everybody
being heard? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah,
Are they being
something.
heard? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. Please go ahead.
I was just going to ask: are they being heard? Like when they make that
That's
call?
what my point is. That's what my point is.
Yes,
When
sir.
we go to the organization and we
Karan,
just go
let's
and
let's
ask.
take the last points because we are way
Right.
behind
No, I'm
the
just saying.
schedule. Okay.
Actually, when we go to the organization and we see, that yes, there are all the mediums are there. People can go and talk. But the thing is, when we check them, how many people can actually come and talk there? Because everybody wants to be. If you don't have a culture there, the people can speak up. No matter what you set up, people will not speak up. And even if you force them to speak up, they will speak up what you want to hear, not what they want to say. This is why it's very important that as an organization, if the question is why we are talking from the leadership point of view, until unless it happens from the leadership point of view, everything is just
Absolutely.
your own personal level. You can do whatever, but this will not show up